Let's try that again. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Bekah will be joining us in just a few moments, but we have um, a lot to talk about. It seems like every part of Marvel is happening right now.
Yeah, it was a busy week, but like in a weird way. It was like a lot of different things.
Yeah. So why don't we start with comics?
All right, let's jump into it. Let's pull up the cover here for Black Cat's. This was Black Cat Annual #1. So again, the numbering and stuff getting weird, but yeah, we are kind of picking up where we left off with Black Cat. It's just kind of like a side story that is then going to connect into Infinite Destinies. So, what did you think about this one?
It was fine. I've been really liking the main Black Cat title, so it was just a little disappointing. They go to sort of with the White Fox character, who I've seen, I think, in Spider-Man recently, and so it was okay. Just it just lacks the fun of that last Black Cat storyline, and it doesn't really pick the threads up from that. So it just felt a little out of place.
Yeah, I'll start off by saying I think this whole lineup that we had this week was not one of our strongest. There weren't really bad comics. It was just nothing, that really jumped out at me as super exciting. I enjoyed this one for the sole fact that Black Cat is a very entertaining character. She's going to make whatever she's doing fun. So it was definitely enjoyable. But yeah, I agree with you. This felt like, it was a one-off. I mean, obviously it is going to connect, like I said, to Infinite Destinies and set some stuff up for that. But the story itself didn't feel super important. It's self-contained, and doesn't really excite you, I guess.
Yeah, I get that's sort of like the perfect sort of description. And there's that sort of tag-on story where we've had with Nick Fury, kind of Nick Fury Jr. Kind of going on a side escapade, trying to track down what's happening with the Infinity Stones.
Mm-hmm.
Even that just sort of felt like, I don't know, just wasn't quite getting to the gear it wanted to get into.
Yeah, it left off with like the last panel was interesting. Up to that point, it wasn't anything too exciting, but that last panel definitely leaves me wanting more and wanting to know what's going to happen with Nick Fury and Infinite Destinies. But yeah, I also thought it was interesting, that this ended on Nick Fury. We have another comic that ends on Nick Fury, so it was kind of a weird connection there. But
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So our next title was United States of Captain America #1, and I will say I was really, really looking forward to the start of this series. I think we hyped this one up a little bit, that we got some news about what this series was going to entail, and I was definitely looking forward to it. What did you think of this first issue?
I liked it. I think, though, Captain America, especially with what's going on, can get a little monologue-y.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think there's a place for that, but at the same time, like, he's always sort of been better when he does something and then kind of explains it, or explains it then does it, and this one just sort of felt a little bit like a little sort of heavy-handed at the beginning, but I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the mystery. I enjoyed the new Captain America we met. I think I think oftentimes we kind of forget how inspirational Cap can be, and America can be, sort of by association. So, I'm kind of curious to see. Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of press upon us that it's not just like it's not a position. It's sort of it's an idea. Right? Like you just can't name someone Captain America. But you're seeing how there's these sort of Captain Americas in the universe who are just inspired by it to kind of claim that mantle is kind of cool.
Yeah, that was pretty much exactly what I was going to say. I love that concept of these other Captain Americas, quote unquote, popping up and being inspired by Cap, like you said. I love the concept, the idea here, but I think it kind of fell flat for me in that the meat of this issue was really just look how cool it is that Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson are teaming up. And I think coming off of everything, Falcon and Winter Soldier and everything else going on, with Marvel Comics, and it's that doesn't excite me right now. So like that wasn't really anything that I was really into. I do agree with you. I like the mystery element of this other villain, this wannabe Cap, I guess that popped up. So that is really interesting. But yeah, this particular issue, I don't think was one of my favorites.
Well, and I think they seem to really play off. I mean, they think the thought that Cap, Falcon, and Cap, Steve are together, and like they've been together forever. I mean, maybe one's called the Falcon, maybe one's called Captain America. This is not the first time they've both been Captain America at the same time,
right?
It's just like they saw the show, and I don't know if this is true because I mean, it just comes across as they saw the show and like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have like two Captain Americas together at the same time? Which is cool, but it's not unheard of or unprecedented.
Right.
So, I think they should have spent a little bit more time, a little less time on Cap and Falk, or, Cap and Cap, depending on how you want to describe it. Because we know those characters, maybe if you're just coming into comic books from the show, this is cooler than someone who's seen Captain America and Falcon work together for decades. And so, and I think focusing a little bit about like what's going on, like the mystery of it. It has a cool mystery that I think was underplayed. I mean, assume we'll get more into it as we get into other new issues, but
yeah, totally agree there. I think it is building towards getting. I mean, we know it is building towards getting those other Captain Americas into this story as well. And I think at that point it'll be cool. But You're right. With this first issue, just the two of them, it didn't feel special to me. So. We'll see. It should build up to something pretty exciting as we go forward, though. As for our next issue, this was the Marvels #3, this ongoing, I guess you can call it a crossover series. Now it's kind of a little bit all over the place with this issue. How did you feel about this one?
I liked it. I mean, it takes a break from like, this is one of those, kind of like episode 4 of WandaVision, books where like you have a story and then suddenly it's like, okay, well now let's go back and see what happened here. Issues. But I mean, it's like I was amazed at how much they packed into this. I mean, you had George before he was MODOK, you had Bartok the Leaper, you had Reed Richards and Sue Storm and all the Fantastic Four basically before the Fantastic Four. And I wouldn't say that it is like a lot happens in this issue, but it delivers on the promise of the book that this book will span the Marvel universe and kind of bring in everybody. I mean, this is not a book where you want to, it's one of those books where if you know everybody, there's cool, but you don't need to really get it. Like, you don't need to know that George is going to become MODOK. Like, it's not important to a plot, but if you know that, is cool. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think it's, I agree with you that it wasn't the sort of strongest week, but I think this is my pick of the week just because every page just had sort of a cool little moment in it. And, I mean, this without the rest of the Marvel story is kind of what's going on here. But I think if you have the whole, it continues to make me excited about this series.
So this is going to be one of those rare instances where we looked at a comic in the complete opposite direction here. Uh, I've enjoyed this series, and I agree. There are some moments throughout this where I was like, "Oh, that's cool," and this did keep me interested in the series. However, this particular issue, and it's funny that you made a lot of points where I looked at it just the opposite way. Like you said, how it's cool that we got the Fantastic Four before they were the Fantastic Four. We got MODOK before he was MODOK. I literally have a note here that says it was a bunch of characters before they became interesting. So this was a lot of like normal people who would eventually go on to do something cool.
Well, see, here's I'm going to disagree with you. Is because it's before they got powers. But what makes we have plenty of characters in the Marvel Universe who have powers who aren't interesting.
Sure.
What makes them interesting is that they were interesting before they got powers, and the powers just magnify. Sometimes it's a result of what made them interesting. Sometimes it kind of puts a spotlight on them. Sometimes it just takes an interesting character and makes it fit in a comic book world. But I think young Reed Richards before he's stretchy is still interesting. I think Ben Grimm is always interesting. I mean, I think he's even more. Sometimes he's more interesting before he's the Thing than because then he has this power that makes him super tough. Whereas he's tough here, but he doesn't have the sort of. I mean, he's fit and strong, but he doesn't have the sort of literal thick skin that he'll develop. So, yeah. I have my most disappointing one of the week coming up, and I'm curious to think what you felt about that one.
We'll probably share some thoughts on if we're thinking the same thing here, but I agree that these characters can be interesting before their powered time, but I don't think it was done that way in this issue particularly. I also felt like this issue opens up with like that moment of like, all right, this is a bunch of normal people around a table. Here's the mission. Here's the situation. This is what we have to do. And usually those things kind of span maybe 2 pages in comics. And this one, it spanned about 15. And it was just a lot. It felt very much like a comic from the 70s or the 80s where it was just, giant blobs of text taking up most of the page. And it was very wordy in that way. And that kind of took me out of the flow of some of the other things we had been reading, like Black Cat and like Spider-Man, which we'll get to. So I don't know, that it just didn't really hit for me. I do, however, I agree that I think this kept me interested in this series and where it's going. So I'm definitely looking forward to issue number 4.
What we got next?
Next up will be the aforementioned Amazing Spider-Man, giant size Amazing Spider-Man number 1, even though this is the continuation of the story that we had been reading. So
I was very disappointed in this one. I think it started strong when it was the Chameleon explaining his stuff, but the Peter Parker stuff in this just felt so flat. And you had a guy who tried to steal. It was like trying to make Biff a sympathetic character from Back to the Future. You tried to cheat, and I mean, not you tried to cheat and steal from bad guys, but then you got caught and bad things happened to you. Whatever. Yeah. And, and there's so many threads happening. We know Sinister War's coming. We know, we still haven't figured out what's going on with Kindred. And there's like an expiration date now on Nick Spencer's run. And I'm kind of like, let's just get going, man. Like, let's, I like how he focused on the Chameleon, but I feel like the Chameleon needs to not be like that needs to be the book, not trying to do 5 things at once. Yeah. And it was giant sized. It just felt rushed. And I don't know. I just, and I'm not saying I don't like Nick Spencer's run because I think it does. There's parts of it I really like, but the pacing has just been so off for me. Like we had, I swear, like 12 issues of Kindred monologuing. And I'm like, I don't, and we still haven't resolved what the heck's going on there. And so, I don't know. I was just disappointed. I mean, because the cover's so cool.
Yes,
but we didn't get that issue.
Right. Probably my favorite cover of the week. And I agree. I really enjoyed the stuff with Chameleon. I like that when this character is involved. I mean, it's like dealing with the Skrulls. You don't know who to trust. Like, nobody is who they say they are. So that whole element of the story is cool. But as you're right, as far as the Spider-Man itself stuff goes, there wasn't much to really get excited about it. There was your typical Spidey action, a few quips here and there, but it didn't feel like his story progressed at all. And yeah, we got a Kindred sighting in this, and that got me excited because now I'm ready to move on. And on the one hand, yes, I agree, it felt rushed, but on the other hand, I'm also just like, cool, rush through this story, get me to the next one. I want to know what happens with Sinister War and how they wrap up Kindred. So kind of okay with that, but yeah, I agree. This whole Chameleon conspiracy story as a whole has been disappointing to me.
So we got one title left, Black Widow, which I really like this issue too, and probably if I didn't read it first, could have been my pick of the week. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I read it last, and it is my pick of the week. So there you go. Your theory checks out. I liked it. I've really enjoyed this series as a whole, and this wasn't my favorite issue, but given what else we read this week, it's still strong enough to be my pick of the week. It was very entertaining. I think when you have characters, Natasha is obviously fascinating on her own, right? But when you add in characters like Yelena and Anya, just super entertaining. And on top of that, there's some really fun action too, some spy, Black Widow type action. So there was some fun stuff happening in this one, and I really liked it. And it gives you a great cliffhanger that now I need the next issue.
I will say, I know people haven't seen Black Widow, the movie yet, but it does pick up on not the story. It's not like this ties into the story of Black Widow, the movie, or even has any sort of plot similarities, but the themes that have been addressed in this run seem so core to the movie as well. Maybe not on first viewing, but as you see it a second and third time, makes you really appreciate this run. I believe Kelly Sue DeComics run on Black Widow, and I look forward to more issues.
Yeah, I am dying to see that movie so I can, go back and revisit some more Black Widow comics and make those connections. But that'll be next week, so we'll be talking about it soon enough. All right, so that is all of our comic fun for this week.
Not next week though, 2 weeks.
We won't be talking about Black Widow next week, right? We'll be watching Black Widow next week, but not talking about it yet. Yeah, you're right. All right, so let's get into this week's Loki, and to do that, first let's bring on Bekah Burbank.
Hi guys.
Hey Bekah.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
So do we have our Marvel must-haves to talk about?
Yes,
this
we
week?
do.
All right. So before we get into Loki, we'll talk about some of the exciting Loki products from this week.
It's actually all from episode 3. So it's a little weird. I'm like, everything's a little the time shifted a little bit, but yes, this is the newest selection, and then we'll have more on Friday. But
get this in there.
Yep.
Nope. Hang on. There we go.
You're good. My favorite items so far this week were the Love is Mischief and Love is a Dagger shirts. So of course, that was a fun part of the episode, hearing both of their theories on love. So you can, whoops, I went too far. You can get the shirts. How fun is that?
Yes, that always wanted a shirt with Tom Hiddleston's face.
Right.
On my chest.
And then there's also another, like, a Love is Mischief as
well. That one I really like.
With her crown, and they think they have this is the women's cut, and then they also have just a standard cut, and that's available in black. I'm trying to think where I misplaced the other photo. There we go. And so you can get one with Sylvie's face too. But those are available at Hot Topic. Hot Topic also had Sylvie's tank top, or like her top there. They have this for like a regular size and a plus size as well. So ladies, if you want to get your cosplay going, there's some options for you. And that's back to the Love is Mischief. Oh yes, and then this what makes a Loki a Loki. So I
like that too. That's cool.
Yeah, I like the swirl. I like that you've got like the silhouette. So I don't know. And these are sold out, but over at GameStop, they had this exclusive like headset or headpiece set. And I know it's kind of cruel to show you these if they're not available anymore, but there's Sylvie's and Loki's. And yeah, I almost got this. It was $100, which doesn't seem that ridiculous, but I wanted to.
The whole package of it is really cool. Like the design of everything there.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean it's great for display. It's great to wear. So some lucky people, I think 6,000 total, were able to nab these. And then of course we've got some Funko Pops. Sylvie was the big feature this week, and then there was a Walmart exclusive that glows in the dark. That's already out of stock, but there you go. Again, yeah. Maybe this will be popping up back in stock at another time. Maybe they'll actually have
popping
it in
up.
Store. Yes, I know, right?
Yeah, Mac.
So yeah, some fun stuff this week over at all of the different retailers.
Oh, hang on. Got to point Kyle's comment out here. Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
better than my joke. Good job.
Yes, there's our variant pop.
There you go.
So, yeah.
All right. So we're ready to discuss this week's episode of Loki. Now we got merchandise from last week's.
Yeah.
Anything happen?
Yeah, no, not too much.
This was so boring.
So, I mean, we're not going to spend time going through and recapping the whole episode, but a few points that I wanted to talk about. First of all, opening up with seeing young Sylvie, I really like that, the way that went up against, we see her go through the whole like process of the TVA and everything. And when we saw Loki do that, everything about it was really funny, right? Like I couldn't stop laughing as we were going through. And watching this, it felt so dark and like everything about it was wrong. So I thought that was a really interesting opening to this episode.
Well, and she had said last episode that she's been doing this for a long time, and you're like, whoa, you've really been doing this for a long time.
Oh, hang on one second. There we go. Yeah, so that was, I mean, it was hard to watch in the beginning of it. So, but it was definitely like a powerful opening. We get the whole thing too with Hunter C20. I feel like I'm playing Battleship when I'm trying to remember the hunters' names in this show. Yeah. And yeah, Ravonna lying about C20 being, or losing her mind when she comes back, and just dying from that, I guess. Who had Ravonna as the villain of this show? Because that appears to be what's happening now.
I feel like, I don't know, the way she interacted with Mobius in the beginning felt a little too managed. Like she knew what I guess calculated is the word. Like it seemed a little too suspicious. Like she was complimentary, but just enough to do it. And I don't know. I guess something just didn't smell right. Yeah,
I will. Yeah, I agree with that. I guess it's more the comic book side of things that's kind of weighing on me as like, well, Ravonna can't be the villain, right? But I don't know. MCU has mixed things, or Marvel Studios, I should say, has mixed things up with comic book knowledge and stuff like that. So we'll see how this plays out now. But as of right now, she is not what I expected. That's for sure. Speaking of unexpected too, I totally forgot that Jamie Alexander was returning to reprise her role of Sif until I saw that, and I was like, I got really excited, and then I realized what they were doing, and like she's not really there. Yeah. But it was definitely still cool to see Sif back.
Yeah, I agree. And who's to say they're not going to find a use for her, or she's not going to be part of something going forward? So no, it was good to have her back.
Well, yeah, and, because of the plot of this, like, it's when you saw Endgame or Infinity War, depending on which character I'm about to talk about, like you knew Loki was dead, and wasn't going to come back in that world, right? Same thing with Black Widow. Like she's dead and not going to come back linearly. But because you're dealing with like time variance and multiverse kind of situations here, you never really you're always a little doubtful that anything is permanent here.
Right.
Like Marvel went out of its way to show you bodies in certain situations because they wanted you to know, like, no, they're really dead. And this is a little bit, I mean, just like the whole premise of the show, you never know who can get yanked out of what timeline. And so doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, but it's, it makes you not trust it. It's like Secret Invasion. You just don't trust anything.
Well, it's like what we've been dealing with comics forever, right? Like anytime a character dies or something happens, they're going to come back in some capacity in some way down the line. And obviously with this sort of show, anything can happen. Like literally anything can happen. You can have an alligator Loki. So, but we'll get to that. I wanted to talk about new Silk comics. Interesting. I don't know that there was anything.
I'm trying to think. They just did that new Silk. I don't know if it was a series or a limited series.
I think it was a limited.
I would be surprised if she doesn't come back.
Yeah.
And alternate version of Black Widow and Iron Man could show up. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I mean, there's any variant could show up. I mean, it could be Spider-Ham could show up.
I would love that.
That would be fun to see in the MCU.
I didn't get a chance to talk about Heroes Return last week, but Mephisto Spider-Ham.
Yes, loved that. I guess what would you? Is it just Mephisto Ham? Is it? I don't know. Pig Fisto?
Yeah, I don't know. But sorry, I'm getting us off track. But that had to be addressed.
There was an interesting line that I wanted to point out too. When Mobius is talking to Hunter B-15, and he mentions we've had Kree, we've had Titans, we've had vampires, and somehow these Lokis somehow are the most difficult. First mention of vampires in the MCU that I'm aware of, unless I'm forgetting anything from a while back. But nice little nod to the future with Blade coming in. So I like that they threw that in there.
Yeah, I didn't even realize they said vampires, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I was my first thought when he said that was Morbius, and I was like, wait, that movie's not even in the MCU. But I realized that's probably just because it was Mobius who said that.
He's the living vampire because they couldn't have real vampires because of the Comic Code Authority back in the day.
There you go. So we talked last week about how we thought Loki and Sylvie were going to get off of Lamentus, and we think we both threw out the idea of the TVA showing up and saving them, but why did they find them? How did they get there? Turns out they are falling for each other, which is very strange because they are each other. And so Mobius points out that, like, his level of narcissism, because he's literally falling for himself. And I just love, like, the idea of, like, Nexus level narcissism. Like, literally, he loves himself so much, it creates a branch timeline that is more so than any other branch timeline that they've ever seen, judging by the way they reacted to it. So that was interesting, but also not surprising given Loki's attitude.
Right.
There were some surprising moments in this episode, notably some characters being quote unquote killed. And the first one that got me really was Mobius.
Yeah.
And that was, did not see that coming at all. And I guess now we can look back at it differently now that we know how the episode ends. But what was your reaction when that happened to, well, I don't even know what we call it. Well, they're being pruned. So, right. But yeah. So what was your reaction when we saw Mobius get pruned?
Well, I mean, I figure he's gonna come back. I just don't think we're done with him that fast. At least I hope not. But yeah, it was definitely sad because it was, and also frustrating. It's like, oh, he's actually onto something. He's close to breaking through something, and we're gonna find out more information. And then it's like, no, you're not. So, yeah, I'm sad he doesn't get to explore more with the jet skis.
I just figured he'll be replaced with a variant from Cristela Alonso from the Cars universe. I gotta tell you, Marvel, every time they want to like just kick you in the gut, they get rid of like an everyman character. Not that Phil Coulson's an everyman, or not that Mobius is an everyman, but non-powered, normal-ish guy who's just surrounded by a whole lot of crazy, and it's kind of your window to the world a little bit, and it hurts every time. I mean, it hurt. It's hurt when it's Uncle Ben. It hurts when it's Phil Coulson, and it hurt when it was Mobius. And I mean, I just wish, I just hope that something will kind of just give it. We just didn't get enough, Like, I mean, characters die, I get it, but like, just.
I will say, in the moment, I thought that was going to be the end for Mobius. I didn't think we would see him come back. Now I have flipped on that, given what else we've seen. But real quick, too, does it want to? There we go. Won't change the way mustard tastes. I get it. I see the appeal. So, yeah.
It's a community reference.
If it's coming from Kyle, just assume it's a community reference. Did anybody else get the Last Jedi vibes from the whole scene in front of the timekeepers?
That's what Kyle said to me, and I was just, I don't know if I was too into it or just not into it enough. I didn't pick up on that initially, but you're both absolutely right.
So let's back up. Ravonna brings Sylvie and Loki to the timekeepers. The timekeepers essentially tell them that, and I don't know how you guys felt about it, but I thought the timekeepers felt incredibly corny in that moment, but and for good reason in the end. But they basically tell them they brought them there to kill them. B-15 comes in, saves them temporarily at least, starts a whole fight. And it really felt to me like they looked at Last Jedi, that whole throne room scene where Kylo kills Snoke and all that, and looked at that scene and were like, that's cool, let's do that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I enjoyed it though. I enjoyed the fight scene.
No, yeah, I definitely loved it. I mean, that throne room fight scene in Last Jedi is fantastic. So I mean, it works. Yeah, why not roll with it again? Yeah, it was fun. I
was like, are we going to suddenly have like a kid with a ring or something? I was confused where you're going with this. So maybe I didn't pick up on it.
No, I enjoyed. Yeah, definitely enjoyed it. What I was referring to before that makes sense that the timekeepers looked kind of corny. Sylvie decapitates one of them, and it turns out they were androids. They weren't real. I'm not sure if this means the timekeepers as a whole are not real, or if these are decoys of some sort, if somebody else is pulling the string, but it seems like they are now wondering who is running the TVA. So, I mean, it's theory time. What do we think?
Miss Minutes.
Yep.
Miss Minutes, yes.
Miss Minutes.
I like it. But, I mean, if that's the case, then
y'all.
What is Miss Minutes? What is behind the projections? Is it just going to be is it going to be like a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man situation where we just have like a 60-foot Miss Minutes running through New York?
I think it's pretty obvious. Mephisto.
There are, I mean, you joke, but there are actually people out there who are expecting Mephisto to come back. I agree with Zach here. I think, and I mean, this has seemed like the obvious answer from the beginning. Is it's Kang. I still think it's Kang. We will, we'll see. But
usually, I think it's Iron Lad.
I mean, that could be a way to bring Iron Lad in. So, I mean, that's not the worst idea.
I mean, are we getting to? So a long time ago, I did a little bit of a deep dive on Wikipedia of just like
Deep
bigger
dive on
and bigger
Wikipedia.
characters.
That's an oxymoron.
But bigger and bigger characters, and like all the way up to the Living Tribunal and all of this. I mean, how? Like now we're talking multiverses and yes, timekeepers. Like, is there something bigger than the? Well, obviously things are bigger than the timekeepers, but yeah, I really don't know where this is going.
Well, yeah, comics have a way of always creating a more supreme being just for storytelling reasons. So, you know, there's always something bigger. You know, I mean, I think that's why they kind of threw away the Infinity Stones at the beginning of this, was just be like, you know, we're not in that world. And wisely, because otherwise it just becomes like, well, why don't you just use an Infinity Stone? But you know, I've been debating a lot in sort of internally. It's like a part of the fun of the MCU is seeing where this product is gonna take you in the next step. And sometimes I think we forget to just enjoy the actual show itself. Like we're like, you know, WandaVision, we're like, how's this going to affect the multiverse and Doctor Strange, all stuff? And it does, but like it's a show on its own right, in its own two legs. It's not an episode of MCU. It's its own show that takes place in the MCU. And you know, it's almost like why I have to watch Marvel things twice is like I watch it once just like trying to figure out how this all plays out, and then I watch it again just to enjoy it. And Loki, because of its scope, I feel can get dangerous to like not, you know, being so worried about what this means as opposed to just what the story is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I definitely find myself getting more excited for the post-credit scene than the movie itself sometimes. And it is hard to kind of separate those two things. But and I think so far, by the way, Loki standing on its own, like if you were to remove the rest of the MCU, I think it's been a fantastic show so far, and definitely can't wait for the next 2 episodes. But before we get to that, we have to end this one, which gives us the surprise Loki death scene.
Again,
see that coming. Right. Well, again, sure. Yeah, this is how many times have we seen Loki die? But this still, and yet, you know, they still make it feel heavy each time. Like it still feels like something is happening here, especially when the show is called Loki and you just killed Loki. So there you go. That's enough to add some weight to it. What any thoughts? What was going through your mind when you saw that happen? Did you? Because for me, I didn't think, you know, okay, like something just that was an illusion or something. Like maybe he can use his magic in here, but seems like it sticks. Kind of for now.
It was shocking, but also I'm not naive enough to think that it's over.
Right.
And especially with Loki. I mean, we talked about how like they make it clear when someone is dead. And I think they've made it clear that Loki is never dead.
Right.
And so, you know, I mean, we got 2 episodes of a show called Loki. There's rumors of like season 2 and season 3. I mean, obviously that could just be, you know, to throw us off the scent. But I don't know. I mean, I'm at the point now with the show. It's kind of like after episode 3 of WandaVision, sort of like after episode 3 of every of these shows. Like I stopped worrying about like what's happening, and now I just want to wait. Like I stopped thinking. I stopped having my head canon that I have like leading into all these shows, and I just go, just give it to me. I can't wait for Wednesday or Friday or whatever the case may be. Just give it to me.
Yeah, I totally agree there. This episode then closes with Sylvie getting the upper hand on Ravonna, pointing the prune stick. Do we have a name for that weapon? Is there got to be something better than the prune stick?
It does keep the timeline regular.
Well played. But she gets the upper hand and tells her, you know, she's not going to kill her. She's going to make her tell her everything. So hang on. I like Kyle's answer too.
Yes.
Yeah. But this is going to be one of those situations now where she's going to get these answers right away, but we're not going to see them until episode 6. So we have to wait 2 weeks to get these answers, because while that ended the episode itself, we then got a mid-credit scene where we see Loki wake up in what appears to be like a post-apocalyptic New York, as you can see Avengers Tower and some other buildings crumbling in the distance. But he wakes up to see 4 other Loki variants in front of him. One of them being an alligator of some sort. But yeah, so that was a very interesting ending there, and
not surprising to a comic fan, right?
Sure.
Like we all presumed that the Council of Lokis was going to show up of some sort.
Yeah,
and so Loki's not the kind of guy who will only have one variant.
Absolutely, that's very true. I agree. It's not like, looking at it in hindsight, it's not surprising. I expected something like this to happen, but in the moment, yes, that still
absolutely, yeah.
Was that cool? Like, oh yes, we got that. This cool thing happened.
So that's not like a fan club or a local improv group or something.
Well, you mentioned during Marvel Must Haves that something about cosplay, and like I think we're going to see a lot of Loki cosplay in the next year for sure.
Yes, I agree. So I recognized one. Well, obviously, you said they're all versions of Loki. The one looked like Thor. So is there a Thor Loki character, or because it looked like it looked like he had a homemade hammer of like a wrench and some box or something.
Yeah, that is the most interesting one that I think has people puzzled the most right now. I think in the credits he's referred to as boastful Loki, which doesn't really give us a whole lot. Aside from that, we have Kid Loki. We then have like a classic Loki with that really cool green and yellow costume that I love. So yeah, that is the really interesting one. I don't know, Ben, did you have any other thoughts about that specifically?
I want a spin-off of every Loki.
Oh, well, sure. Yeah.
I love Kid Loki.
Yeah.
Classic Loki. I want all of them.
What about a Lizard Loki series where it's just all animals?
That's amazing.
I mean, he's got to be working with
my favorite Marvel comic book at all time was Pet Avengers.
That doesn't surprise me, actually. That seems right on par. So that is the end of this week's episode. Any other closing thoughts before we move on to a little bit of Marvel news?
I will say I saw Black Widow last night, and then to go into Loki, it's a little like overload.
Okay. I don't want to question that at all, I'm afraid.
No, and I don't mean let me be clear. Black Widow is not like game-changing MCU kind of material, right? But you just have so much fun and seeing it in a theater where people could react. I mean, we talked about a post-credits tag, but waiting for the people to see that tag and know what, hear their reaction is just always the best. And it made me kind of wish I could see Loki in a theater. Like, I would love if they would do it like Tuesday night. You could go see the episode at like 9 p.m. in a theater and just see it with other fans. Yeah. Because, I mean, it's cool to watch at home, but it's cooler to watch it with other people.
That's cool.
Real quick off of that, actually, I have a friend visiting, and we just had her watch Endgame for the first time. And as soon as we finished it, I had to show her videos of crowd reactions in the theater to the portal scene, because that's still just one of the coolest experiences of my life.
That's my one regret is that we went to the Alamo Draft House, and we probably could have reacted. I feel like it would have been acceptable, but everybody's so quiet in those theaters. So you had that big exciting moment, and it was just kind of like nobody did anything. I wanted to cheer, but so that's my one regret with seeing it at Alamo.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know that I want to see these kinds of movies at a draft house. Like, I like seeing a lot of movies at a draft house, but you want a little bit of chatter, not like obnoxious, but you want like, you want a little bit of that.
Yeah, probably for the big Avengers, like Endgame was the one to really do it for.
Well, I mean, even the first Avengers movie, when they do that sort of hero shot, like, how do you keep that in?
Right.
Let's jump into some Marvel news before we end up just talking about Loki and Marvel for the rest of the day. we got a new Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings trailer. Did you guys get a chance to watch this yet?
Yes.
I did. That was the one was on the NBA game, right?
Yes. That is the one. And we also, I think it was either yesterday or 2 days ago that Kevin Feige confirmed that the fight scene we see is Abomination and Wong. So not sure what the context is here. Don't know what's going on, but I love it. I'm excited that both of those characters are in there for some reason.
Right?
So definitely looking forward to this movie. Not that I wasn't already, but
No, it looks amazing. I'm excited. It looks beautifully shot too.
And we finally get to see the actual 10 rings.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, that was interesting. I know.
I'm curious to see how they interact with the 10 rings from Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like, is it connected or did they just sort of steal it? I mean, that one shot they did where, they revealed that Ben Kingsley isn't actually the Mandarin, kind of brought it all into doubt about what is the Mandarin really doing and what was part of this ruse from AIM.
Right.
But, I'm curious to see. I hope they address it because it's weird if they don't. I mean, not that I want it to be a major plot point, but, I'd like to know a little bit about, because that's the dawn of the MCU. I mean, that literally caused Iron Man to be caught in, Tony Stark to be caught in that cave, right?
Yeah, I have to imagine there will be some kind of reference to it at least, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Another very interesting, strange is actually the right word to go with too. Strange news involving the MCU was WandaVision related. They decided to alter the post-credit scene from WandaVision for one reason or another. We I guess don't have real confirmation as to why, but it appears, at least on the surface, that there is some Doctor Strange involvement. I know there's a lot of theories out there about this. There's a glitch of sorts that you can see kind of descending towards the cabin where we see Wanda practicing her dark magic from the Darkhold. We don't know what that is. People are theorizing that might be like an astral projection of Doctor Strange. I don't know. But they did add Michael Giacchino's Doctor Strange score to that final scene as well and added it to the credits. So there is some sort of Doctor Strange element that has been added into that post-credit scene, which, we expected to see Doctor Strange, right? I think everybody was looking forward to that moment, and we didn't get it. So now it looks like they're kind of giving it to us later on.
Which weird is they didn't announce it or anything.
Right.
And so it just felt like, why? I mean, it probably made it better and it probably connected it better. But if no one's going to notice, it just seems like a lot of work for no one to. I mean, obviously someone eventually did notice. Who knows when they changed it?
Right.
I don't think people are watching every episode of WandaVision every day, and would notice. It's not a huge difference,
Right.
And so, I mean, unless George Lucas decided he wanted to, was bored. Like the why of it, I'm not upset they did it. I'm just puzzled as to why bother, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, very strange. Glad it wasn't George Lucas that changed it and having Wanda saying McClunky at the end of it. But we got some cool, interesting Marvel news today, and that is a new Simpsons short coming to Disney Plus next week. The Simpsons, the Good, the Bart, and the Loki. I'm going to mess up that name 100 times between now and its debut. I am not the biggest Simpsons fan, but when you throw this poster at me, I'm going to watch this.
Right? Well, I mean, same thing with the Star Wars with the Force Awakens from its nap. Like, yeah, that was very enjoyable. I'm also not a big Simpsons fan, but I'm curious what they're going to do with this. And Tom Hiddleston is going to be voicing Loki, so Loki's going to appear in this short. So that's kind of fun.
So can I ask a real meta question for you community fans? Is this a variant of Loki?
See, I mean, yes, right?
Should they put the Simpsons version in that final tag?
I don't know how you can work an animated version of Loki into the show, a live action show, and not have it look really weird. But I would love it if they tried.
I mean, look at how they did Miss Minutes, though. She
True.
was out of the computer there, out of the monitor. I think they totally could do that.
Yeah, I would love to see them get real crazy with these Loki variants in the next 2 episodes. I also, last night, Marvel shared an exclusive first look at the new Marvel mobile game, Marvel Future Revolution, which you can check out, all the details and everything on laughingplace.com right now. It is wild. This game looks like something you would, be playing on a PC or your PlayStation or Xbox or something like that. But it's just something you play on your phone, and it is like so far beyond most of the games I would normally play. And I mean, the gameplay looks crazy. There are really like awesome theatrical cutscenes. There are 8 playable characters right from the start, and they're only going to get more and more. And the crazy thing, let me get the exact number here, because there was a pretty mind-blowing statistic, and it was there are 400 million costume combinations per character in this game. You can customize your character to that extent. And I mean, I don't know how much space it's going to take up on your phone, but it's something you can do. So there you go. And Marvel Future Revolution, we don't have an exact date yet, but in the App Store, it does say expected in September. So, look for it in the next couple months, I guess.
So is it, I looked a little bit at this about it. I can't talk. Will you be playing with other people, or is it just like, I know it's an RPG, but are there other people who you'll be?
Yeah, they didn't go too much into the multiplayer aspect of it. We really just focused more on some gameplay stuff and details like the characters. It does seem like there is a multiplayer dynamic to it, but I'm not sure exactly how that will work. Again, given that there are 8 playable characters, I'm not sure, if you'll have multiple Iron Mans and multiple Spider-Man, stuff like that. But I would imagine there will be a multiplayer element to it.
Okay, cool.
A few comic book bits of news that we'll run through real quick. We got Ben, you mentioned earlier that Nick Spencer's run on Spider-Man is coming to an end. We got the lineup of new writers that will be taking over for Amazing Spider-Man. And real quick, we have Kelly Thompson, Saladin Ahmed, Cody Ziegler, Patrick Gleason, Zeb Wells. Pretty awesome. Especially, I'm excited for Kelly Thompson to be writing Spider-Man. That should be a lot of fun. We know
3 times a week. I mean, 3 times a month. Right.
Yeah, 3 times a week would be a lot. The Last Annihilation will kick off with Guardians of the Galaxy 16, July 21st. Rob Liefeld, the creator of Deadpool, will be returning to X-Force for a one-shot, X-Force Kill Shot. And then we also got the third title in the Aconite Books Marvel Untold line, Witches Unleashed, which will be about Ghost Rider teaming up with some unlikely friends to catch Lucifer. So a very interesting story there. So I think
poor cat can't catch a break.
I would love to see that Ghost Rider and the cat going one-on-one there. That wraps up our Marvel news for this week.
Well, a lot going on. And I should say, if you're interested in my spoiler-free Black Widow review, it's up on laughingplace.com. Super spoiler-free, which makes writing these reviews really hard.
Can I ask, is there a scene where they eat shawarma? Like, is there a group, like, after they've completed something, do they gather to eat shawarma? Just kind of...
No.
What about the Russian equivalent of shawarma? I'm not sure what that would be, but...
Yeah, there is definitely a dinner scene. I'll give you that. It's in the trailer.
Right.
I will tell you also, so the movie's going to end and they're going to start the credits. I would not leave the theater until after the credits. Just it's this thing they're trying out, and I would recommend you wait. It's a lot of credits,
Okay.
but because apparently there was CGI in this movie, I couldn't tell. But
Everything just looked so real. The practical stunts were incredible.
yeah, really expensive.
To
But
be
yeah,
fair, I'm sure there are a lot of really incredible practical stunts as well.
Well, yeah.
and yeah, I would definitely check it out. It's a shame. My one thing is this movie was intended to come out like in the shadow of Endgame, like 6 months, 9 months after Endgame, and it would have been better then than we've moved on with WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and this has the main point of this movie is definitely like it's like a epilogue not an epilogue, a tribute to Natasha, and so therefore it just feels like, oh yeah, it's like going to a funeral like 2 years after it happened, and you're like yeah, I miss them, but it just feels like we kind of moved on already.
Just to give it the darkest possible comparison.
Well, it's kind of what happened, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
I mean, and what's interesting is like there was so much talk about like when this movie takes place, and it takes place in the weirdest time of like no one would have predicted this. I guess I shouldn't say no one. I'm sure someone did, but like I would have never predicted. Yeah, that's when the Black Widow movie is always going to take place. So check it out. It's fun. I enjoy it.
Interesting. I was under the impression that we knew when it took place, but maybe not. All right.
Maybe you do.
Okay, fair enough.
When do you think it takes place?
Is it not between Civil War and Infinity War?
Oh, it does, yeah. But it when they first announced the Black Widow thing in Budapest, and like you would think it would have more of that story.
Yeah,
and it really doesn't. It's really about. It really isn't about. I mean, the timing of this movie is sort of irrelevant. But yeah, it's definitely not like when they pop up the year, you're like, huh. Because also Infinity War took place like earlier than Infinity War came out, right? Because you had the
right.
And so you're like, huh, I didn't think that year would be the year we're talking about, but whatever.
Right.
Well, regardless, as long as that Marvel scroll comes up in the beginning, I am going to be excited for it. So
that was in the theater. That was like if people started cheering. Like it just felt good to see that again on a big screen.
That must have been a really cool moment.
I love that. They changed it between Civil War and Doctor Strange, and I wish they'd had it for Civil War so all of Phase 3 could have that Marvel opening, but I love what they have now. I get so excited every time, even watching on Disney Plus. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Well, we have our latest episode of Zacks of Life just came out on Monday, so you can check that out. Off the top of my head, I can't even remember what we drafted this past week. So, Disney Vacation Buddies, yeah. So you can check that out. Jeremiah as our guest, and we'll have another episode next week breaking down this episode of Loki that we just talked about. What else do we have going on? Well, I guess nothing more today, but tomorrow is an exciting day with fireworks coming back at Magic Kingdom and Epcot. So we'll be live from both parks tomorrow.
Well, I will say too, we still have a lot coming on. I mean, it's not necessarily live video, but Alex was at the Laughateria in celebration of Monsters at Work today. So you can check out our Twitter to see some pictures, and there'll be an article shortly. Jeremiah's at Disney Springs celebrating Celebrate Soul, which is sort of their new initiative over there, tying into the Summer of Soul movie that's coming to Hulu and theaters on Friday. And then this afternoon, Pacific time, Mike will be at Knott's for their time capsule ceremony. So there's a lot going on tonight, not necessarily video-wise, but we got a lot we're covering. So stay tuned to our social media as well as our news, and we'll have all that stuff up there as it happens.
Cool.
And we got a whole week of Black Widow, a whole 2 weeks of Black Widow content coming.
Yep. So. Yeah, there's still more coming out every day. So
yeah, and can't wait to talk about it with you two and not have to hold my tongue.
Yeah, we'll have a special LP movie club for that coming up.
Yes.
Can't wait.
Well, thanks everybody.
Hi guys.
Bye,
Have a good
everyone.
day.